Welcome to the Inspired Evolution, and it is such a treat to be here today. Actually, cannot emphasize how much of a treat it is to be here today. We have the vibe and the time and the presence from Emeli Paulo. Emeli, how are you today?
I'm so good, especially after that introduction. Woo! I need to start off my podcast like this. Woo!
But Y-E-W, and it's very tame on paper, but when you say it, you've got to give it everything you've got. So, yeah!
I do Y-E-O-W-W-W-W.
Okay, I like it. It's got a bit of earth to that. It's got a bit of earth.
My Polynesian bogan. Bringing it.
I like it. I like it a lot. For those tuning into Emeli for the first time, right? So it's going to be really succinct because I want as much time as possible to go into this conversation. But she is the founder of Collective Potential, and it is a social enterprise like no other. She basically has a vision to inspire and empower people to live what I would describe as, I'm going to get a bit hippie about this, but it's blockage free, right? Like we all have these things that sort of basically lock into who we are based on some of the interactions we have in life. I know this was birthed from a really deep exchange that you had with a woman that necessarily, let's just bite the bullet and have the conversation. You were standing on a street corner one day and you saw a lady basically throw herself in front of a car. And you poetically put it quite deeply, which is, two lives were changed forever. And since then, I think probably maybe not even since then, I'd like to see where this conversation and where your journey started but you've been an incredible advocate for mental health and mental awareness, which is something that I'm really passionate about. A big part of what I do is running mindfulness trainings, and now that's bled into corporate mindfulness, working with companies like PwC and all this sort of big corporate labels. But it started off with me going out to construction sites, and I was guiding meditations, doing mindfulness work for construction workers, because construction is a very interesting environment.
I know the stats on male suicide, and the construction industry holds
one every 2 days. 1 every 2 days, a person takes their life in construction in Australia alone. That's one country. We're not a very big country, only 26 million people here. One industry every 2 days. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And I think the two of us, and there's many of us, whether you want to call us health professionals, speakers, mindfulness teachers.
Crazies.
Amateur gurus. I'm not a guru. So
I thought you were going to say I'm not an amateur.
Oh, I am. Don't you know? I just think that we're saving lives, and a lot of people can think that they're just putting together a little program or running some kind of art therapy, but we're not. We have an epidemic, and I really believe that I can speak power. I can speak the truth to the powers that be now after a recent experience I had, because I just think that what you're doing with Inspired Evolution is saving lives. No ifs or buts about it, because you'll never know. You cannot measure the preventative mental health. I believe that's the space we're sitting in.
Yep.
Or at least I believe that's what Collective Potential is sitting in.
Mm-hmm.
That you can't measure that. Hey, at one of the workshops I had recently, 12 people came up to me at the end out of 80 people who I happened to put together in 2 days and kind of randomly wrapped it around my birthday. But in those 2 days, 80 people turned up to celebrate my birthday for me to run my workshops, and they all said to me, there's 12 out of the 80, this program saved my life. And I can't measure that. There's no way. I can't take that back to the government and go, by the way, I know I said 12, but if you put funding into what we're doing here, it would really drastically help the mental health of this country. They don't always listen to that. But we know, don't we? Hey?
Well, that feedback is vital, but something I really want to talk to is, we've touched ground on something that I really want to start this podcast with is, you and I have been connected in the ether for a little bit through a beautiful sister doing amazing work for mental health as well. Love Out Loud, Nicole Gibson.
Love her. We partner with her. Have such gratitude.
Yeah, blessings to her soul. She's such a warrior. I love her. And we've been connected for a little bit, but and there's been this back and forth. But it was this opportunity to come along to your birthday, and it was fascinating because just from the outset, like, let's talk about, let's just pull the carpet apart, right? Go like, I love the fact that just from the outset, you're someone that's turned around and gone, it's my birthday, time to most people are like, time to receive. Yeah. Like, let's just get, like, call a spade a spade. Birthday, time to receive. Yeah? And you just turned around and gone, can't wait to give.
I haven't even clicked. That's what it was. That's but so
legit. That's what it was. Looking from the outside in, this is a reflection, of you, right? So, like, it was like, and I was like, dude, who is this bloke? Like, let's get to go around to this. So, like, there was heaps going on that day, but I made it a mission to come. And I'm sorry, I left a little bit early as well. But to come around and just see what was going on for your birthday. And like you said, there was a room full of people, and not just everyday people. Like, these people, like, a lot of change makers were in that space there to receive with you, share the space with you, and a spectrum of people at all different varieties of, like, where they were at, what they were going through. And the thing was, I found it amazing that within 5 minutes of being there, that had been conveyed to me that people were where they were at already. Normally it takes a while to sort of be in a space, understand where people are at. I guess what I'm trying to allude to is your level of facilitation is beyond inspiring. It's really amazing. Right. It's really amazing. Because I'd been there and, like, already you could see, like, all right, cool, these people are out here and these people need this and these people need that. And you'd already kind of, like, not separated the room, but kind of like there was this diagnosis that sort of happened for the space. And it was like, cool, exactly where you need to be, do your thing. And here we go, And I was just like, wow, this is incredible. And then on the back of that, we started going into these really amazing exercises. And I was just in awe the whole day of what was coming out of that, and, like, the deep places that people were connecting to. Obviously, we're here having a deep conversation, and promise I'll shut up soon and let you talk. And
what I like about podcasts is it goes both ways. It's a conversation.
But yeah, and just the conversations that we're having had in that space, for me was really yummy. Like, conscious conversation is my whole thing, right? And there was just so many people, some there for the first time diving deep into themselves, some that were used to, your ways, and I was going to say shenanigans.
They are used to my shenanigans. That's why they come.
And they were totally into it, and it was amazing.
Oh, that's great feedback, because I pride myself on the space that we create at Collective Potential. Yep. I think that there's a lot of spaces, like, on one end there's, like, the consciousness groups that really spend a lot of time, and some people see that as hippies, others really revel in that space. And then you've got this sort of training and development space where it's about learning a skill, whether it is your emotional intelligence. And I like to think that we sit somewhere in the middle here, because I think there's a group of people out there, and it's not for everybody, but I actually think that majority of people can come to my workshops, because on one end I'm as loose as they come because I've had the funnest life ever, and then on the other side, because I've spent a lot of time in facilitation, I've actually ran 15,000 events, and that's why I have that capacity to maneuver a room based on the audience that's in it. And for my birthday, like, what a random event, but you've got a lot of people who are also interested in volunteering for this movement that's about to start in the country around mental health. So I had to figure it out quickly, but it is a diagnosis. Why is everyone here? And I call it experiential facilitation. Most people out there do, and you can really be interactive and engaging without following a run sheet. Follow who's in the room. And so that's cool. Like, I'm obsessed with facilitation. I love it. So I'm so glad you said it.
Yeah, and let's, like, just start the conversation rather than trying to follow a script. The thing that I actually admire a lot about that is, on the way of, like, I've been on this path for about 2 years now of, facilitating rooms, running events, speaking. And I absolutely love it because it's just an extension of conscious conversation, right, for me. And that's everything for me. But the thing that I find that rubs me the wrong way the most about this is there's kind of a precedence, and I'm just going to call it, and I usually try to shy away from saying this, but a lot of what happens is when you've got someone facilitating a space, or you've got two people up on a stage talking to each other about something really important about a topic, what you end up with is 600, 1,000, sometimes 5,000 people in an audience, all of them very readily listening. Yeah, passive. And listening, and what they're doing inadvertently is handing over their energetic power, right? So they're like handing over the power. It's like, okay, let me know what's going on. Like, you tell me. And it's like, mate, what can I tell you? Like, you're going through your own journey. You're gleaning the wisdom that you need in this precise moment. I'm part of this experience as you are. And for me, that was profound because the way you put it, experiential, little hacks that I've learned in speaking is consistently trying to get people back into their bodies, and making myself not up on the stage, coming down, walking through the audience and making sure that, I'm there with them, and I'm always raising my hand, getting them to come back into their bodies, making them move. And that was something that I've slowly been learning, but watching you facilitate was like
simple.
Yeah.
I've trained over 2,000 facilitators in experiential, and some people are innate in it,
right?
And others say to me, "I can't do what you're doing," but you can train into that space, and it takes your own personal journey to be able to then be that agile, as they love to put it as, or that flexible, and that relative, be in relationship with people rather than that passive and I'm leading it. And I think you see it a lot more, the trend of it happening these days, but I'm so passionate about it. Truly, that's a really cool way you put it. They're energetically handing it over, and you should see the people, they freak out when some people even listening to this, I would never go to a workshop where I have to talk to people, or I would never go to a workshop where my hand has to be put up in the air. And I honour that. I respect it to the point now I leave a space up the back for you to observe, because I used to be like, I'm throwing you all in the deep end. And, maybe a bit young and amateur in my approach, don't you think? Yeah. You're like, yeah, let's get everyone to the place I wanted to be in. And now I don't. I go, okay, if you don't want to interact, observation is just as important, because through that awareness of what's happening in a room or observing that, you can learn a lot. But I do believe that wave of facilitators who will be drawn to some of the programs that I'm getting collective potential to do in the future will be experiential facilitators. It will become a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the trend that's happening.
It's amazing.
Somebody once called me the female Tony Robbins, and I was like, I will take that.
I love it. So tell me, let's go into it. Collective potential. Tell us where this, because, there was obviously a moment where it was birthed, but there was obviously a background to it as well. So tell us the moment that it was birthed.
Oh, it's an interesting one. It was birthed, I had this amazing mentor. Many of us did, actually, a crew of facilitators, all these young people, by a guy named Jimmy Steins. Do you know of him?
No, but I'm listening.
So a lot of people in Victoria know who he is because he was an AFL footy star, Brownlow medalist.
Yeah.
Really well known, and unfortunately he passed away from cancer. And we're talking about this man created a youth organisation called Reach. So
yes.
So we have worked with over 500,000 young people, but really the dynamic of it being youth-led and us being trained.
Yep.
I was trained for 20-odd years to do experiential facilitation and train people. Uh-huh. And so day in, day out, I was out there then training others. But Steinsy and Paul Curry, who created it, when he passed away, I knew that I had to continue the work and his legacy to young people. So this man had a state funeral. This is how big and how impactful the work of Reach was.
Yeah.
Because it was about connection, it was about community, and it was about getting people on purpose.
Yeah.
And so I took what I observed all these years and thought, I'm gonna take the people need connection to be real and authentic in their behaviour, and give them the tools and a tribe and a team of experts around them that can help them go that next level in their life, but still be surrounded. And I just took the model of Reach of what I went through and then realised I need to do it for adults. So after he passed away, it was enough. But you've got to consider the moment that happened when I was in year 12. My parents had died. I was going through abuse. I love drugs and alcohol more than myself, kind of thing. And I really was in a bad place. And this guy came in and told me I had potential. So this was like 20 years earlier after he passed away, and I realised I had to create collective potential. And the point is for me that over the years of going through this place and this instrumental moment that changed the trajectory of my life at 17 led me to needing to run this for adults. Because I believe that 80 people turned up in 2 days for my birthday. It's that we've been running for 5 years, all these events where 200 people would turn up on a Friday night instead of going out and getting wasted. And then it just slowly started to build that people wanted this, what we didn't even know the true essence of it until 5 years later when we did an impact report, that above all else, they wanted connectedness. And they couldn't get over how connected we create that space in, like you felt, in 5 minutes. They're like, what is this? So it was Jim that helped me get to this place, but it was the real need that I saw in society to create belonging and connectedness and give people the tools to create the change too. Where are you finding that? Where are you? So, yeah, we're one of many people out there doing it, but that's where it began.
Right.
What do you think? What do you think?
What I'm thinking about actually is a real interesting dynamic that recently keeps coming back to me, which is the opposite of addiction is actually connection. People that are addicted, their therapy is not to it's not to let go of what they had. It's actually the addiction stemmed from a place of lack of connection. And I find that to be just in the languaging, I find that to be counterintuitive. I'm just going to call it that. Because when you're addicted to something, you're connected to something that is not serving you. Yeah. So you'd think that separation would be the remedy, right? To separate from something that actually doesn't support your highest good. Let's just use language that fits. And from there, you'd think separation was the remedy. But unfortunately, or fortunately, or just in its kooky way, this is what I find ironic, is that actually it's just that you're connected to something that is creating a severance inside. Yeah. And it's actually about healing that and healing your connection and finding connection. And, you mentioned the words connection, community, and purpose. And, I'm just so grateful to be part of this conversation here and now. Like that to me is like some of the most profound things in my life. Like connection is my highest value. And it just means so much to me. And like just connecting with you here today and the people that will get connected on this podcast. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to facilitate greater connection. But I find it amazing that you've called what it is collective potential, because it is at the root of it, it's mental health awareness. Let's call it what it is. But it talks about collective, which is connection, and then also potential, because it talks about all this untapped, people that are going through stuff, which is what I was alluding to in the intro, which is like you may have blockages, you may have stuff that is holding you back, but fundamentally we've got this amazing opportunity to, work through our stuff and find ourselves and our purpose, right?
Yes. And it's true. Like you think about, I had some major addictions in my life. Like it was recreational. Like that's how it gets put. Oh yeah, just be a party girl. It's fine. That's just what people do in this country. But it's taken me years to pull myself out of the addictions that I had around drug taking and alcoholism, and that it was just normalized for someone like me, that because I'm fun and joyful, like, yeah, let's party. And I used to try to separate myself from that world, but I didn't acknowledge that I have some childhood trauma that was my connection to myself. I would use that to bring me connection with others because I didn't quite understand I could do it organically. Yeah. And then when I was around Reach, there was no part of me that wanted to be taking drugs when I was in sessions with these young people. God, no. But cut to a weekend and I was still hiding that it was just recreationally. That's just what we did.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jim used to always hammer me, why are you doing it? You've got to be better than this. And thank God I had somebody like around him who said, don't separate yourself, create that connection. So I love that you said that, because when I sit there in a tribe full of people in a workshop, I know what it's giving me. And it's connecting me to my truth, to my true nature, that I am love incarnate. And when I forget that, it's because I'm off my own, hiding, trying to do things on my own, build a movement. And I'm like, oh, yeah, great. Where's my tribe around us? What do you guys want to do? Oh, is that the same potential? Is this podcast the same thing? And like through that, I don't even want to party anymore. Like, why would I? Like, no offense to people who are out there still partying, but
yeah.
I love that statement. I love that you think that it's separate. You want to separate yourself, but it's not. It is a need for connection.
Yeah. And you embody that really gracefully, sister. Like, it's really profound. Like I said, on your birthday, you're not out there partying, you know, you're out there partying in your own way. I had heaps of fun at the event, you know, like I had heaps of fun, and I'd never even met you.
So much fun. So much fun. And I say to people all the time, I said to like a team of fundraisers, I looked at them after we ran this retreat. And again, at the moment, I'm just sort of going with the flow of just let's create something and see what happens. And we even put a retreat away for the weekend, and 80 people turned up in 2 weeks to go on this thing. And you go, why? And I looked at them and said, it can't be that easy that people have transformative experiences. Like, I didn't even really do much. I just brought you all together, got a team of like amazing speakers like Nicole. And I think, again, Collective Potential's prerogative is not the Emeli Paulo show. It's who else is out there doing what they're doing and bring us all together to learn holistically about our mental health. Where's our finances at? Like, everyone says create change. So we had a financial advisor there who's so aligned with us being on purpose, had someone to deal with your sexuality and your relationships, like talking about love out loud.
Yeah.
You know, we had someone there to talk about our body and how we treat it and how we look after it. And so there was this really beautiful looking at your career, your spirituality. And it was just, again, so many of us are running wonderful retreats out there. But I did turn around after people were like blown away on the impact of it and go, it can't be that easy. But it is that easy. What we are doing is that easy because people are disconnected.
Yep.
And once you give them that space to connect into themselves and people around them, it's like osmosis. It's synergy. It's off.
It's amazing, you know, and like this sounds, as we're talking, you know, like very simple, very grassrootsy, but at the same time, it's not, because you've been at the UN recently, right?
I have. Well, it's more, I've been in South Africa. So what we were doing is creating a framework for a united campaign that gets taken to the UN. To the UN. So United for Global Mental Health rang me and said, we want to design a global campaign that unites the world. And have you ever heard of the Make Poverty History campaign?
No.
It's this amazing campaign that, you know, Live 8 was sort of based around, the big concert.
Yep.
So what they did is create a campaign that is neutral for every person in international development to use. So Oxfam, World Vision, all the big players, but then even the small ones, and then all the fundraisers and people who create grass movements move and mobilise under one campaign. Now, I worked on the concerts here. So let's say we had Bono, Pearl Jam, the Make Poverty History concerts in Melbourne. There was 15,000 people mobilised. Millions hit the road with us. Like, we went out on a road trip. Like, it was a group of us who created it, but it blew up. Like, to the point now, this campaign that we grabbed hold of and used to be the work our projects under its banner could unite all these organisations. And 10 years later, $16 billion was raised and infrastructure was changed and laws were changed. The UN did this. Like, it was massive. So if you consider that this same model needs to be created for a mental health campaign, never have we seen a global united campaign. So that's what we were doing. 20 nations in South Africa, Someone sponsored me, go over there. We sit there. I was sitting there with Dr. Pat McGorry, who's like the guy that created Headspace. So I'm like this, what am I doing sitting next to this man? Meanwhile, somebody said to me, he'd be asking the same thing. I was like, we'll go with that. But you've got Ghana, you've got Argentina, you've got Nepal, you've got India, like all these people who are just as passionate as we are, who run their own programs. And we've been each selected to mobilize our country or be the academic, hence Pat McGorry, to say if we take and co-brand and co-facilitate and collaborate, we can lobby our government for more action on mental health and better action, that is. Like, Australia leads the pack. Like, we all know that. Like, we've got amazing systems here and we are very grateful, but it's all relative. Like, we need to say that just as important as physical health, we need to make mental health equivalent. It's an important issue. It's one of the most, don't you reckon? It's the last taboo subject. And
yeah, well, there's one in two of us sort of struggle with depression or anxiety, and 1 in 2, like between you and me in this conversation, one of us, you know, it's like 1 in 2, and I know I've got depressional tendencies, you know, and it's just like, yeah, it's amazing, you know, but we, again, exactly what you said, like, we're not having this conversation in so many places.
And the system, you know, if you think about the objectives of a global campaign, and here in Australia, to consider that it must be people-centred approach to say to our government, you're all about medical, and we appreciate that because that's where it's had to spring up from to do something about. But the care in the system is next level. There are millions of people waiting in queues, whether it be chronic illness, like mental health effects. It's one of the core issues around domestic violence. Why is that happening? You know, we're looking at homelessness. It's in there, mental health. Like, it actually, the asylum seekers are going through it. Like, every single issue you can imagine socially, at its core, has a mental health component.
Yeah, which is systemically playing out. Yeah, which is systemically playing out into the symptoms that we see in all these different avenues, for sure. Absolutely. So even just simple things like Saturday night violence, like, you know, in the city, like all these, like a myriad, it's at the core of so many issues. I totally understand that. Something that happens for me in some of these meetings, and like, I'm definitely yet to be at something that is as profound as this for you, but, you know, like, what happens when you basically are holding a torch, let's put it that way, for Australia, for mental health awareness, and you rock up and you're in South Africa and you're having these conversations now with someone that's holding the torch in India, someone that's holding the torch in Argentina. Like, can we talk a little bit about how much inside you gets healed, knowing that it's not just you going through it on your own?
Such a good question. I came home impacted. I'm an empath, and I have to spend so much time beautifully protecting myself and my energy, but I was rocked to the core over there because I was listening to stories of how, you know, people in Ghana are chained up to a log because their families think they're cursed, and you watch these beautiful, it's called Basics International, who came in, took his foot out of the chain and put him through a process, and he's gone through such a community healing and mental health process that is new and innovative, not to us, but over there it is, that he's now teaching young kids and being part of the community. And he was there with the leader, and you go, oh, that's heavy, man, that in certain countries around the world they don't have, like Argentina doesn't have anything, like, and you've got all these pioneers. So I come back and go, what is my place here? And so I've given myself a few weeks to work it out. And I've come back and I'm pretty clear about what I'll do at this point to mobilise, and it's to listen. I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but
no, it's
I feel
brilliant.
like I think that's where some people can question those big events, but what they do is, again, osmosis, like by being in the room together, you go, oh, we're actually part of a global community. I'm not crazy that we need to create change. My frustration and anger that pops up when I hear this and this and this in my country, you mean I've got global support? And, you know, I recorded all of these different countries saying to camera, Australia, this is Nigeria, we are with you. Australia, this is Sierra Leone, we are with you. And, you know, it's a video that eventually I'll find someone to produce or wrap it all up and put it together for me. But we are mobilising and doing great things. But I do believe if you think about Make Poverty History, it was a campaign that someone just instigated and sat together and said, why don't we do something? And there'll be certain dates that will all push at the same time. And think about that energy. Not push, connect.
Yeah.
Like you'll meet people just by sharing it, right? Yeah. What do you think of that? Like, did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you know, the whole concept is like it's fascinating. You know, I guess I've just been in sometimes you know, the whole, and I think you alluded to this a little bit prior in the conversation, was, you know, that lone wolf energy. You know, you kind of feel like you're battling it out on your own, creating a change. Like, I know specifically on construction sites, you know, like mental health. Yeah, I'm pretty much the only person that I know of that's running around construction sites, like supporting different companies, helping them with meditation and mindfulness, right? And, you know, there is that lone wolf energy, and I feel really privileged to be able to do it. You know, like on one level, I'm the guy that turns around and gets to be like, you know, some days your headspace is fucked, you know, and that's the meditation teacher talking. You know, I get to swear through meditation training. That's incredible, you know, and there's value in that. For a while it was like, but, you know, because most meditation, bring it to a construction site, closing down your eyes, you know, that's just not going to land in that space.
It's not going to land.
Yeah, at all, not even close. And so there is that, but again and again, like what I've noticed is like, and I've struggled in certain places as well, is like having conversations with, there are some people that are like, you know, mental health awareness advocates for the construction industry, let's say, and I'll reach out to them and I'll be like, you know, you guys are doing amazing work, you know, just letting you know that I'm doing this, we should partner in together. And they're like, we definitely agree with the benefits of what you're talking about, but nobody in this industry has time to take 10 minutes off to meditate. And I'm just like, really? It's not true, because I'm running around doing this work and people are like pulling me in to do this work. So what you're saying is contradictory. But what they're willing to have, their whole advertising campaign is definitely worth it, because they're trying to have people to have conversations with each other, right? So it's like, do you have a mate? Do you have a mate? Ask your mate if he's okay. Ask your mate if he's okay. But I think fundamentally, in a space where everything is predominantly so toxic, is this the only word I have for it, really? These type of innovations are laughed at. You know, it's like, you're right, mate. Yeah, you're right, mate. Yeah, you're right, mate. You'll be right. You'll be right. She'll be right, mate. You know, it's like you just take the piss out of this thing that you're trying to like connect, like create connection. But again, you know, like at the core of all of that, for me, fundamentally, like awareness is such a powerful tool, you know. So when you come in and you start talking about mindfulness, you know, and people think construction workers have this like, you know, they're macho, they're strong, you know, they're cut from a different cloth. And it's like, dude, that's just an exterior. If you scratch that inside, you just find pulp, you know. It's just this. And like, we're talking to people about anger issues, we're talking about unresolved grief, you know, and it's like those ones that you think are the hardest, like anyone that's pretending to be the hardest doesn't have the strength to be vulnerable. Yeah. And so there's so much going on in there that really needs attention. So what I've found is like, when I do meet like sparks of people that are doing similar work, or like something that is like, you know, and they're receptive, just how much inside me shifts, you know. It's like, whoa, that's such a breath of fresh, and like it actually heals something inside me. Is like the only way I can put it, you know. It's like I'm not on this mission all by myself. And
such a great question.
And that's where I'm asking, you know, your space. And it was really interesting to hear from you, like, you know, from someone that's, you know, been on the journey for quite a bit longer, you know, and just having the space to go, actually, my role here is to listen, you know, is like hold space for these people that are going through what they're going through, so that they can feel heard around their issues, you know. And I think for someone like that's much more mature and been through this space, I can actually see the value in that, you know. For me to just be able to share what I've just shared, what you've basically done is, what was your integration, is listen to me, you know, and just being heard for like what is going on in my space, in my industry, in my battle out here is massive.
I think I think when you consider that we have to learn to listen as the facilitators that we are, anyone listening to this can just make sure you don't think that that's not activism in itself. You know, like people go, oh, we just listen. No. Like, the issue is that people don't know how to listen. We're trying to jump over the top of each other to have the next say. We've got our own internal issues going on that if you were to share your big deal in your life, it's probably going to trigger me, and I don't really know how to look after you, and whether you are macho or sensitive. Like, we aren't trained in how to listen or have empathy or necessarily learn how to connect. And I think we all hear it, but it's not a problem. It's a fucking beautiful solution. So when I consider moving forth to take a beautiful global campaign and then deliver it across the country and help people join forces, and it culminates in millions upon millions upon millions of Australians with all of our tribes. To me, collective potential is more of a linchpin in developing events and mobilising activities and campaigning activities that people can listen to each other. And be supported in that I think that in itself is the listening. That what are you going through with Inspired Evolution? You want to reach more people or get into get deeper into the trade industry. Well, great. If we listen to what their issue is and we say, well, let's go around and involve the trade organisations or the building industry into the campaign. And so now they're co-branding on something that is happening globally, and you become aware of a campaign. You become aware of, oh yeah, I could stick to that, rather than just this small little thing. It's part of something bigger, and over time you see a shift. Like one of the workshops, the birthday one that you came to, a young miner, an engineer, in fact, came to that event, and he's like, "Oh, that was the best thing I've ever been to." Em, what is that? That was sick. And it was so inspiring to think that he went into the big mining company and said, "You've got to meet this woman, Emeli Paulo. She's going to do great stuff." People are dying from safety issues in the mining, but isn't it about relationship building and people having the confidence? Because if you build a better relationship with them, then with each other, then they'll look after their mates and they'll be connected. And so here I was thinking, if I was to ever go into these industries, who am I to do this? Although I think I work great in those places. I'm such an Aussie Island. But I got to listen to him, and then he said, look, they pushed back on me. They said, you, as an engineer, you're in the wrong industry, mate. You care too much about people. This is what they said to him at the boardroom table. In a little way of like, the people, we don't have time for this. And that's cool. But I said to him, hey, don't worry. I understand this could have been a great big contract and they're not listening to you, but you've become an advocate now. You're listening to people. And he started sitting at tables with friends and doing that activity I do where it's about connecting with each other and just hearing and listening. And already he's become an advocate, and he changes the future of engineering. I said, you're not in the wrong industry. You're just an advocate for change in your industry. And that is you listening to what's happening with all of the young graduates that come through. Perfect. Now, if that isn't sacred activism, or, from him listening to all these people, he now wants to be an advocate and he's an activated leader in his in the mining industry. And you go, great. Somebody who you go and speak to in those workshops will be listening to what you're saying, and they will become an advocate for it.
Incredible. This bleeds into what I would like to ask you is, for those that are listening into the conversation we're having now, like what advice, and I know advice is a bit of a loaded term, but like tools, tips, hacks, strategies, something along the way. Yeah, options. Options is a good word, actually. Thank you so much. So what options would you provide them in terms of like let's say I'm in a place where, I want to create a change, or I'm thinking about like there's things that I'm aware of, but I'm not really feeling the courage to take it on, or, even if it might be collectively like a social issue, or it might be a personal thing. Like for me, I want to change my career and I'm not really ready to take it on. Like what is in there that, you can support people with? Are there some tools people can take away?
Of course. There's so many tools. I think that sometimes that becomes the issue, that everyone's like, where do I start? Is it in my health? Is it in my finances? Is it with my relationships? Is it in my spirituality? It's not working. But I just think that, particularly if you're someone who's just starting, and maybe if you are a bit more advanced, is let us never forget that you have the power to choose how you want your future to be. But when you're not in a great place, we can forget that's our choice because of all of the childhood trauma, the disconnection from nature, don't know what our personal values are. I'm losing relationships, I'm working too much. Like, these are common causes of disconnection.
Symptoms,
so, They are. And so the opposite to that would be, well, where are these points of connection in your life, and do a variety of them, not just one, but many of them, and try them out week by week. But I think over time, like, how do you want to feel? You need to know your why. And that's my heartbeat. Every time anyone walks into our workshop, when you have clarity of purpose, you will move towards it. So what does that look like in its simplistic terms? How do I want to feel in one word? And a lot of people go, I've got so many things. So what you want to do is start to consider, you either write them down or talk to a friend, and you go, okay, example for you, how do you want to feel in 6 months' time, Amrit?
Illuminated.
In a word. Illuminated. And why? What would you see different in your life in 6 months' time?
I think that's a continual journey of just like finding more wisdom and just being on that path of, not necessarily up here illuminated, but like in the whole being, just cultivating greater illumination. Enlightenment is an interesting word, but I think illumination is kind of the journey where I'm at the moment. And when things light up in my being, I can feel that as a thing. So connection helps me light up, and so that illumination is what that speaks to. Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about illumination, when you have it, you'll feel a sense of what? If you could distill it down to a virtue or a value.
And
you've already said it, but I'm just...
It was more the energetic... it's like a fulfillment.
Okay, beautiful. So we have all these variety of words that I think are really integral, the illumination, the connection, but ultimately your body and mind fell into fulfillment. And that's a virtue that a lot of us forget, that there is like 52 of them according to the Virtues Project out there. But in 6 months' time, I want fulfillment. So what do we do tomorrow that will bring fulfillment? And you do it, so it's just innate in you now. But for people who are dragging or lagging behind or think that they are, being able to consciously pick a word of how you want to feel, and it takes some designing, with a coach or with a good friend or somebody that you're watching online or listening to. It could be freedom, it could be liberation, it could be responsibility, it could be integrity, but that word, that focus creates your reality. And so it also becomes an elimination process. Can I go left or can I go right? Well, which one's going to bring me more fulfillment?
Yeah.
And do I want to hang out with that person or that person? Do they bring me fulfillment? No. Do I stay in my relationship because they're not really fulfilling me anymore? And maybe I need to find that in myself, but let's be honest, then people are like, well, do I need to be staying in my job? Is it causing fulfillment? Like, it's the reason we leave jobs. It's not a bad thing. We just have a very distinct knowing, and it normally ends up being a word. And it's one of my favorite things to do with people. It's just that simple process to go get clear about in 6 months' time. And that's why I say 6 months, even 3 months, 90 days. How do you want to feel? Because the virtues are there in every religion, every teaching all over the world for a reason. They're a behavioural thing. You align to that word and you move forward.
It becomes your intention.
And that is why I make it more logical. Like, I'll be in the room with miners or corporates and go, okay, logically, how does everyone feel in 6 months' time? And they give me a full loaded sentence, and then I drill it down, and they're like, oh, yeah. And the thing that you normally want, don't you reckon, is the thing you feel most void of.
Yeah.
Your highest value can also be the thing you most feel void of. And so I meet many people with discontent in their life, and their focus becomes, I just want to feel content. Or people who feel blocked, I want freedom. You know, it's a telltale sign, and I love the cycle, because you then also know that your highest value is this, and mine is purpose. I want people on purpose. So what's the next obvious step? And I'll just quickly say, there is an epidemic of people out there, don't you reckon, in a way, that are trying to work out the how, though. How would I get that fulfillment? Don't do that. That's where anxiety is created, in the how. If you found your why, you know, that end result, the what will come as you start to explore the next steps of the how. So take the next obvious step, and then assess the next obvious step, and then assess the next obvious step. But the epidemic of anxiety and depression sits in, I can't move from that where I am now to there. So let's just focus on why and take a step.
Yeah, and that involves a lot of trust. This keeps coming back to this on this journey of walking out onto an inspired evolution, you know, like you find, like, because a lot of times you drop in with
what's your thought on that?
Well, for me, it's you know, and that was, I think we were talking about this a little bit, like just the amount of trust it takes, you know, and like the inspired evolution, you know, like I kind of was hoping that I'd interview tons of people, find out how to do it for myself, you know, people like yourself creating impact, and just figure out, this is a blueprint to be an impactful person. This is what you're going to go do. Rock up at this place between 9 and 6, this many days of the week, you'll be sweet. And there was no such formula, you know. It was like, all right, everybody's got their own mission, and it's like you've got to share and find your own way, and that's all the how, like everything I'm talking to now. But why did I want to do it, right? And it comes back to that fulfillment, and it's like I want that, like self-actualization, you know, at its core, self-realization.
Great. And it's so brave to take that risk and do it. But this is where I feel like is missing, and I won't get up and speak.
Yeah, I just really want to speak to bravery, because as you're sharing that, like that year that I quit my job, right? I was sitting there, and it sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous. I've mentioned this before, but I think you're really going to love this, is because I was sitting there, I was eating my acai bowl at lunch, just being my hippie self, and reading, like I was on my phone, Googling, and I've just, for some reason, for the life of me, just Googled the word courage. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, you know, just one of those divine moments. Just Google the word courage. And what's popped back at me has completely changed my whole life. I clearly remember that moment, because for a long time, I thought courage was the same as fearlessness. I thought, like one of my favorite movies is Braveheart. So I thought William Wallace was fearless and courageous, you know, and so I just thought, like, having courage meant not having fear. And I was just like, okay, well, I guess that's, you know, not necessarily for me. Like, maybe I can work on strengths, you know. But having that realization is like, oh shit, courage is actually not having fear. Courage is totally having fear, but acting despite your fear in the face of that. And it was like, And
if you know your why, if you write it, if you sit down every morning and meditate on the thing, that despite the fear that's there, which generally most of the time that fear is your energy of moving towards the thing that you want the most, but we keep calling it anxiety. And don't get me wrong, I know how hard it is to have an anxiety disorder, but I also think that combination of that energy is actually to push you forward. But who trained us in that? Use it.
Yeah, channeling it.
Channel it. And do you think for a second I'm not terrified every day of running a workshop and creating a rally around mental health? Like, who am I? I'm a girl from the hood. Like, I'm terrified, but I have to follow it. And I just think courage, bravery, you nailed it. That is the next step to getting to your fulfillment. That you always need a bridge to get you there. And those bridges turn up.
And I think you've spoken to something really potently, which was something that was coming up for me in the conversation before as well. Like, I'm a big fan of stress. And when I say that to people, they're like, what the fuck, you're a meditation teacher, do you mind? And it's like, no, seriously, stress is amazing, because it's doing the work that I want to do for you, but it's your own system doing it for you. Like, it's letting you know you need to shift, bro. Like, it knows, sister, that, you know, there's something in there that's not in alignment with your highest, what you would call purpose, what I would call, you know, like,
share that with people. That's wonderful.
And it's just like, dude, that stress is a gift. It's a blessing. But I think something I wanted to talk to you about is like, even when you're saying like activism, there's like this anger or there's this stuff that comes up, channeling it, learning to work your emotions into a constructive space.
Yeah, like I also think we live in a world where when people say, hey, you just need to sit with that emotion, and you're like, I've had people ring me and go, what is this and how do I learn to do it? Can you, because I do coaching one-on-one. And I'm like, we can, but if you want to do this, I'm going to get you to hold a pillow and hug the pain away. They're like, what? Because I've had to sit with the uncomfortable feeling of mobilising Australia. I've had to sit with what if people turn me down. I've had to sit with is this the right move to start a rally as one of our first activities? And I feel like that activism is also why it's kind of sacred in its sense. And there's an amazing speakers that travel the world talking about sacred activism, but all the civil rights movements, whether it be Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, they all believed it was impossible until it was done. And so I consider activism to be, what will you activate and how will you use your fear and your emotions to drive you? Because you can't trust your emotions and feelings as far as I'm concerned. So you got to give it time. And over that process of setting that end result or that vision or that word, you start to learn to maneuver it and work with it. And it's like being in primary school or kinder versus being in high school and university, or being someone as a retiree. It takes time to adapt and learn how to use your emotions. So anyone who's thinking, oh, it's easy for you, and I've had many people say that to me, it's like, no, it's not easy. It takes bravery and courage to be an activist, but even one in your own life, to activate yourself. Activate your potential.
Yeah, there was something I was actually in Brazil when I was, it was an interesting point because I was over there and a big part of what I was doing was musically focused, and I was trying to activate certain things, and it was like just the word activate meant a lot to me. But then when I was meditating, it was like, oh, you can't really activate and not become an activist.
Tell me about that.
It was really profound. It was, it was like, just because on a real simple level, like on a mundane, I was like trying to activate skills, trying to activate like motor neurons, trying to activate, like trying to myelinate neural pathways to try and make things happen that weren't previously happening. Classic example, the guitar, something new for me. But, like being Mr. Meditate and Mr. Mind, I really like, these new challenges, trying to see like what happens. I learned so much about these things. Like, let's just say I'm trying to learn how to move my fingers up and down a fretboard on a guitar, and I'm really struggling. And I'm like, my intention is, all right, can I activate that piece of the puzzle? Because I know other people can do it. So why can't I do it? And so like calling in activation as an intention, we talk about words that, sort of work. And I learn a lot just for those listening in these processes of learning new skills, because what I've learned recently by taking on the guitar, let's say, is that actually if I practice and I sleep, sleep, when I come back the next day, I'm more proficient at what I did. Ooh. Yeah. Now it's fascinating because it's something that's so real time. It's like 15 minutes of practice a day and a solid night's sleep, and my brain, myelinates.
Who doesn't want to go to sleep as part of the right?
It's incredible, right? So I learned these things, but my intention was activate, right? But then obviously, like, I've been reading Interpretation of Dreams by Sigmund Freud, and that's like a space that I'm moving into, and just like analyzing dreams a little bit for myself, Yep. And as I'm setting the intention to activate, stuff is coming up for me around like, okay, like just I'm just listening to more and more around, okay, American politics, which is very difficult to swallow. Like all these things around the world, like oil spills in Brazil, there was like a dam that basically got completely toxified because of some sort of mining company's mishap. And all these things are starting to come into my like awareness, which, you choose what you're aware of most of the time, if you're on the path of a meditator. And it was weird. It was like, where is all this like coming from, all of a sudden it was like, so my intention has been to activate certain parts of my brain, but what's actually coming up for me is like, there is a part of like, you can't really activate without taking on activism, and there are things that if you're going to activate, you're going to have to stand for and stand against at the same time as well. It was a subtle but profound thing that happened.
I really love it, because I say to people all the time, I was listing before all of the organisations and social issues that are impacted and at its core have a mental health component. Environment does, the climate change, because I agree, the more that I noticed my awakening or my consciousness or my self-awareness or my activism, it produced it. I decided to turn the lights off, run the Make Poverty History campaign, think about myself as a global citizen. What do I do here that works over there? And I think people get quite disillusioned, drop off the activism bandwagon because they think to themselves, who am I to? And my question is always, who are you not to? The people don't know the power they have. And I really believe in it, that once you start to do this work, you become more active in creating social change. And I think that's a beautiful way of putting it, that even a guitar can help activate that. But it's true. I really believe it does. There is a spectrum.
Yeah, profound. So I think a big thing that's coming out of this conversation is like listening, listening to yourself, listening to, what it is that, even if it's that word that, is what's calling
Purpose.
you forward, what is it that's driving you? So connecting to your why, but really listening to yourself and what's going on. I've got a couple of questions. I really sincerely feel like I could talk to you forever, and I probably will, but I've got to tie the conversation. I've got to tie the episode off, and then we can chat. But like, my question I've got is, what inspires you?
People like you.
Hey, you're such one.
In the sense where I don't think we just help people to change at collective attention. We have two arms. There's the personal growth side, but then there's the advocacy side, the mental health lobbying. And in that is that we also help create change makers. And so I get really inspired by change makers, your ordinary hero who's answered the call to adventure, that's left their workplace, even though the money was so good, and decided to not follow the grand narrative, and then really learn the trials and the tribulations of doing that, but finding a real deeper sense of fear and finding the reward from exploring themselves. Like, I think that ultimately people like you who then take that message back to the tribe is what's keeping the decent humans in check in this world. And so I do love what you're doing, because it does matter to a small component of people that listen to your podcast or jump in your groups. They're not coming to mine. So I get very inspired by your everyday hero because they know it's actually about the tribe that they've created. That's the hero's journey's purpose, is to be a part of a tribe, to pass it on. Get inspired by that sort of thing.
Wow, really humbling to receive.
Well, it's true. Yeah, it's true.
My next question is there something that you could give as a takeaway as something that's really supported your evolution? I know this conversation has been filled with that today.
Hasn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds just my first instinct, and I'll just follow it. I was given a really cool opportunity to go to Richard Branson's island. So someone sponsored me to go to Necker. Yeah. So I got to sit with Richard Branson on his tropical island in the Caribbean. Yeah. And,
just
Brene...
As you do.
Just casually. And believe me...
Just a regular Saturday night for Emily.
I feel slightly like a wanker name dropper, but in this moment, I was just following my gut. I was like, you have to say that. And it was just that he just said to me really simply, when I said, I want to create a health and wellbeing movement that we've never seen before. I want to mobilize our country through large-scale events that are really innovative in their approach to mental health. I want to design a wellbeing brand with the group of humans that are doing it, so it's synonymous with wellbeing, not with mental health. And I said, it's unacceptable to me that people are dying and the rate of suicide and depression, it's out of control when we have a sense of connection, a need for community, and a real sense of collaboration. And he just randomly turned around and said to me, "You cannot fail." And recently it's popped back in because it seems so big. Like, I've spent a year or two just mobilising and trying to figure it out, and I've done shitloads, but your mind sort of goes, "Oh, you didn't do that well, you failed." Yeah. And so my intuition is the message of, if we move ahead, if I've moved ahead and it hasn't looked the way that I thought it would, I haven't failed. Like, I've got every contact under the sun. I meet beautiful people because of this movement I've decided to be brave and courageous about. And you don't have to start a fucking movement. I get that, but you can't fail. There's no such thing. You just learn from it, and your lessons, man, your lessons are your greatest thing. Every mistake I've made, have I learned a lesson? And that's where it's not failure. And I just think that's hilarious, coming from the man who's failed more times than any of us could ever imagine to do what he's done with Virgin. But I'm just a woman in Australia trying to mobilise the country. You just go, okay, I can do that. I can't fail. Just keep going.
That's incredible.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's it. The most amazing people come into your life when you start to focus on that end result, that word.
Yeah. That's brilliant. There's another thing that I picked up recently from someone else that shared was it was Vishen, CEO of Mind Valley that I was working with, and he said something about he was with Richard Branson again, and seems like we're name dropping him, but there's a cool conversation to have. He basically turned around and said, he goes, what's probably asked a similar question to what I just asked you, like, what was one tool, and he goes, make decisions fast. And I was like, okay, and I can understand the value of that. And he goes, yeah, but sometimes, like because Vishen's a CEO, and it's like, you're thinking about all these multiple parts to things. And he goes, what I deem as a successful day? And Vishen goes, what? And he basically goes, if you can sit back and look back at your day, and out of 100 decisions, you got 51 right, you did good. That's all it takes. And you think, and how many times we have paralysis by analysis, and I look at that in my own life, and it's like, should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? Should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? And it's like, nah, just take a stab, and maybe this one you're wrong, but the next one you're right on, and it's just like, gave me so much space to sort of mobilize it.
Yeah. Great. I love that. I really need to hear that again today. And again, if your vision is clear, like that end result, you'll make them really quick. You will. Yeah. You do make them quicker. And then hold on to your panties. What? Yes.
So I want to know.
It didn't. Why didn't it work? Okay, let's keep moving.
And iterate. So I want to know, for those that want to tune in and get around Collective Potential and Emeli, do we have to wait till your birthday? What's the easiest way to get in touch with you and receive your blessings?
Great point. It's not always about my birthday. That was my random one. Yeah, we run events called Real Fest. So once a month in Melbourne, we have Real Fest. I'm out on the road traveling with Let's Go Motorhomes.
I saw this.
Luxury motorhomes. So we're doing a road trip around the country. So I'm calling in 200 change makers who want to hit the road.
Health awareness.
Yep, but it's also about personal growth. So think Oprah meets TED Talks. You'll be out on the road meeting lots of amazing communities, but also really getting your own personal growth in that. So you can join the road trip. We launched that again in May. I'm really excited about that. And then I hit up every national city over the next 6 months with the global campaign for mental health that we bring here to Australia. So you can go to www.collectivepotential.com.au.
Perfect. And social media, are people all right to reach out to you, say what's going on?
Please. I'm like you. I'm all about
connection.
People say, how do you do it? I'm like, some days it's too much, but you just give it a day or two and
You're back.
jump straight back on and write back to people. Like every day I receive a wonderful message, don't you? Like it's amazing.
Blessing.
Message me, talk to me. What do you want to know? I'll pass you on to somebody, put you in another Facebook group, like what inspires you? Like that's why we call it collective potential. There's plenty of people who manage that in our tribe too.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, I really want to, should I do gratitude first or ask you my last question first? I'll do gratitude first because it feels good. I really want to thank you, not just for your time here today, but also, the joy, the vibe, but also like all the work that goes into, the person that is sitting here today and all that you have to share. And you share so gracefully and openly. I'm just going to put it how I see it. The light that you hold is really a blessing to receive, and it inspires, me for sure and others as well, guaranteed. And on that note, wishing you all the best for, what's coming up as well.
Yeah, and I just want you to know, gift of words right back at you. You're liberated purpose. It's liberation that I couldn't quite. I was calling it joy earlier, but anyone who listens to you or follows you, it's like a real sense of liberation, and that goes through breaking through the shackles, and you don't get to that place without some serious discipline. And I think that hard work you put into yourself and your tribe and your movement around you, it's evident. Like you are a liberated human, and I just think, yeah. You're well on your way to an illumination. Mate, you're already illuminating now. Look at you. I'm blinded by it.
Where's the light switch? Turn it off. No, okay.
Where's my sunglasses?
Well, you're lucky the podcast's about to end. Not kidding.
I am.
My last little question, and by no means my least question, is it's metaphysical in its nature.
Okay.
So beyond the name, beyond collective potential, beyond the advocacy, who is Emeli?
Just a girl who wants to be loved.
Ouch.
I really am. I love people. Sometimes I don't feel loved, and then I go out and remember that they're all around me, and I think basically many of us feel that way, and let's not pretend that's what we innately need. That's where I get humbled of, okay, that person loves me. Amrit loves me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's it. My family would say the same thing. They're beautiful friends and family. So thanks for bringing me into your family, and thanks for listening.
Blessing. Thank you so much again. For those tuning in, get in touch with Emeli via Facebook or Instagram, or find her on her social media, or get in touch with the website. I'm really curious about what's coming up in May. I have to say this podcast, was a while in the making, but it definitely found its trajectory when I basically came along to her birthday and found myself having this incredible, incredible evening with some incredible, incredible people. So I cannot advocate her work more highly. Please get along and just experience what you can out of her amazing experiential facilitation style. It's definitely going to help you grow in one way, shape, form, or another.
Beautiful. Thank you. I honor you.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Love of the Inspired Evolution and sharing the Love of the Inspired Evolution. If you feel like this content has supported you, or may support anyone else that you know may resonate with the content of it, please share away and share the love around. Thank you guys so much. And to stay up to date on whatever's coming out with the Inspired Evolution, please subscribe. There's all these links in the bio for you to tune into the episodes and all these different platforms, just so the message can get to you and your loved ones. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Stay inspired to evolve.